So in this video, we're going to be covering 65 upcoming video games of 2022 and 2023, ranging from the games that will come out just a few days after publishing this video to the videos that will probably come the next year or maybe even a little beyond. So let's not waste your time and let's get right into it. Oh yeah, and before that, you know the drill. I'm not here to waste your time. A list of every single game will be in a description down below, and because we cannot cover all the 65 games in detail, even if we're just gonna spend 1 minute per video, it's gonna take more than an hour for this video. So in the description you will find not just the list of the games, you'll also find at least one trailer for every single one of the games. All will be in the description. So let's not waste your time and let's get into new and upcoming games, starting from the ones that are coming very soon and ending by the ones that are coming a bit later. So let's get it started. And thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Cooking is a chore and nobody's got time for that. Going grocery shopping is just not fun, and waiting to find out the good recipes and to cook food, well, it's not fun. Well, not with HelloFresh. With 50 weekly options, including a rotating selection of items at HelloFresh Market, there are plenty of delish dishes of choose from no matter the occasion. HelloFresh has options for everyone, including family-friendly, fit and wholesome, and quick and easy meals. So there is something to please even the pickiest eater at your table. And HelloFresh is even cheaper than grocery shopping. Even at the full price, its pre-portioned ingredients mean you don't waste money on an excess food. HelloFresh has more 5-star reviews than any other meal kit, so you know you'll always get something delicious no matter what you choose. Use my link in the description down below or go to hellofresh.com and use the code in the description down below for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts across 7 HelloFresh boxes. Again, thanks to HelloFresh for supporting the channel, and see the links in it down below to support the channel even more. Now, back to the video. And number 1 is Stray, and in this game you will be playing as a cat in a futuristic world populated by the robots, and your goal is basically to find your home. It's gonna incorporate some platforming and puzzle elements in order to keep the game fresh and very funny. And with its insane atmosphere, game looks pretty cool. Next is Thymesia. Thymesia is a fast-paced Souls-like where you wield a plague as a weapon. Yes, we will not have a shortage of the Souls-like games in the near future, but this one has a very Bloodborne vibes, which makes me happy. Next is Saints Row, which will be the reboot of an old series. It's basically the same old Saints Row, but from the looks of it, they are going with a Saints Row the third look. Get into the same old mayhem and, well, relive old Saints Row days. Next is Last of Us Remake, and it requires no introduction. It's basically the remake of the first game. We're gonna have a newer graphics and the game will basically look a little better. Not that it needed that, but yep. If you want it, you can have it. Next is Warhammer 40k Darkitide, a co-op horde-based shooter, which is basically a Vermintide, but in 40k timeline, which is basically a very, very far future. Game looks insanely fun and very gory, so if you like Vermintide, probably take a look at this. Next is Soulstice, which is a slasher Souls-like where you control 2 characters at once. The goal of the one character is to attack, while the goal of the other character to CC and support. From the looks of it, it looks pretty interesting, but only time will tell whether it's good or not. Next is Evil West, which is the third-person action western where you fight the hordes of the dark forces alone or in co-op with friends. From trailers, game looks interesting, but again, we're gonna see how it will turn out when it will come out. Next is Deliver Us Mars, which is a sequel to Deliver Us Moon. It's an action-adventure game on Mars where you need to uncover what is happening around you. Game has platforming and puzzle elements, and from the looks of it, the story looks a little interesting, even though a bit vague. Next is Marvel's Midnight Suns, which is basically XCOM with the Marvel characters. And yeah, I mean XCOM because it's made by people who made an XCOM. It's a tactical strategy where you control Marvel characters against the forces of darkness. And I personally really looking forward myself for this one. Next is Plague Tale Requiem, which is the sequel to Plague Tale Innocence, where you continue playing as Amicia and Hugo. Now the characters have a bit grown up and you're continuing your adventures in this dark medieval period to basically find the better life for you and your brother. Next is Scorn, which is very interesting first-person horror adventure with combat and puzzle elements. And as you can see from the footage right now, it has an insane atmosphere and aesthetics. And if you don't like very gory games and games with a lot of flesh, and I mean literally flesh, yeah, you can skip this one. For others, you can jump right on. Next is Gotham Knights, an open world Batman game, which is basically a Batman game without a Batman, and with co-op. You are in control with a few Batman sidekicks, like Robin, Nightwing, or Batgirl, and basically you are fulfilling the functions of Batman, because Batman in this game is dead. Well, I guess spoiler, but it was said in trailer right away. Next is High on Life, which is fun action adventure from the creators of Rick and Morty. And from the looks of it, this game's main attraction is its very colorful atmosphere and sentient guns, which react basically on everything that you do. It looks interesting, but only time will tell how it will turn out. Next is Sons of the Forest, which is a horror survival game and a sequel to The Forest. To be fair, Forest was one of the most interesting survival games in my opinion, and I'm really looking forward what they can do with the sequel. Next is Nightingale, which is also a survival game with interesting card mechanics and multiple procedurally generated worlds. And where this game actually got me is in it with its giant monsters. Well, we'll see how it will turn out. Next is Atomic Heart, which is basically Soviet Union themed Bioshock with an insane futuristic aesthetics. Game style looks very interesting, but only time will tell whether game and gameplay is actually good or not. And the next is God of War Ragnarok, which is the sequel to excellent God of War of 2018. Atreus is now all grown up, and basically this game is a consequence of events that was happening in the first game. This game is promising to be an insane conclusion of the northern adventure of Kratos, so I cannot wait to see it. Next is Pentiment, which is a narrative-driven historical medieval adventure from none other than Obsidian, and with very unique art style. You need to unlock some murder mysteries, and yep, this game looks pretty interesting, even though not a lot is actually known about it. We shall see when it will come out. Next is The Wandering Village, which is a city building game where you live on the back of a giant creature. Your goal is to harvest the resources of this creature and live in harmony with it, or completely exploit it. The creature itself is moving through the world, and your gameplay is changed based on where the creature is actually located. Next is the Callisto Protocol, which is a space horror game which has very similar vibes to Dead Space. I love Dead Space, and well, I cannot wait to see what the Callisto Protocol will actually show us. Next is Oxenfree 2, which is the sequel to, well, Oxenfree 1, and it is a side-scrolling adventure where your goal is to unravel the mystery of what is happening around you, and it involves some time travel mechanics and mysteries. Cannot wait to see it. Next is Ark Raiders. It is a cooperative third-person shooter where you need to fight robotic invasions, which is happening from time to time. Not a lot is actually known at the moment of the recording about this game, but one thing that is known is that it will actually be free to play. Next is a very interesting one, which is Palworld. Palworld is basically open world multiplayer Pokemon shooter. Now, it's actually not the Pokemon, but the creatures are very Pokemon inspired. And it is very violent, including the exploitation of these pals or Pokemons or whatever you want to call it. The game looks pretty interesting, and well, let's hope that it will not be another flop. Next is Synced Off Planet. It is a companion-based shooter where you fight alongside with your Nano, which is basically a Warframe. Think of basically a Warframe, but you're not fighting as a Warframe, you're fighting with the Warframe. It looks pretty interesting, but again, implementation is what will decide whether this game is actually good or not. Next is Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, which will be the first-person open-world action-adventure in an Avatar universe. And from the looks of it, it will most likely be kind of like a Far Cry, but in Avatar universe, because Ubisoft is making it. So yeah, we shall see how it will turn out. Next is Hogwarts Legacy, which is an open-world action RPG set in Harry Potter universe. And from what we know right now, the game looks very interesting. It is happening in 1800s and gives us control of completely custom new character. I'm kind of excited about this one, but I hope it will not flop. Next is Replaced, and it is insanely atmospheric, retro-futuristic 2D action platformer. Not a lot is actually known about this game, but what you see is what is the most interesting about this game, and it is its looks. It will probably be one of the best looking games of this year, or maybe even the next one. Next is Bleak Faith Forsaken, which looks quite a lot like Elden Ring, and it's basically an open world Souls-like with fast-paced combat and dark atmosphere and with giant bosses. And to be fair, it's kind of like exactly like an Elden Ring. Hopefully it will be as good as that one as well. Next is Forever Skies, which is very Subnautica-like action survivor game. Well, instead of underwater, it's actually happening on the tops of skyscrapers, and where the ground is basically toxic and no-go zone. It looks very interesting, and if it will be anything like Subnautica, boy, I want to play this game. Next is Planet of Lana, which is the beautiful puzzle platformer adventure, where you explore the world with your trusty little companion. And from the looks of the gameplay, it is very, very reminiscent of Limbo, down to its spider creatures, but it doesn't look as bleak as that one. Hopefully, it will be good. Next is Witchfire, which is the first-person shooter roguelite with magic and monsters. With its retro weapons, it kinda looks like Hunt Showdown, but instead of other players, you're playing against, well, monsters and, well, giant creatures. Hopefully, roguelite elements will be good in this one. Next is Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn. This is a third-person action RPG with very interesting-looking world. But to be fair, it kinda looks very like Forspoken, and you can see it yourself. Well, if it will have a great world and a good story and good gameplay, I really don't care. And speaking of Forspoken, next is Forspoken, which is a third-person action adventure with an emphasis on very fast-paced movement. On Steam, it has even parkour in its tags. This game has an insane hype, and hopefully this will not go down like Cyberpunk did. And the next is a Dead Space, and I'm talking about the remake of the first game. I loved the first Dead Space, and hopefully this remake will be at least as good as that one, with more modern engine and modern mechanics. Next is The Day Before, which is post-apocalyptic MMO survival shooter. And to be fair, from the looks of it, it feels very like Days Gone mixed with Division. Hopefully, this game will get the best parts of those games and not the worst ones. And the next is Forza Motorsport, or Forza Motorsport 8. But I think right now it's called just Forza Motorsport. And it's, well, and if you have played any of the Forza Motorsport games, it's basically exactly that. Racing sim for Xbox. That's basically all there is. I don't think that it needs any introduction. But next one maybe needs a little bit, but not much. And it is Resident Evil 4 Remake. And then this will be probably the remake of the best Resident Evil game of all time, or at least according to some people. Hopefully it will retain the atmosphere, and hopefully it will be as good as other previous remakes of these games. And the next is Hollow Knight Silksong, and it will be a sequel to an excellent Hollow Knight action platform. I liked Hollow Knight a lot, and I cannot wait to play with this new character in this new game. Next is Homeworld 3, which is the sequel to legendary full 3D space RTS. And by full 3D, I mean that in space, you are moving in full 4D, not just in one plane. And it's basically a granddaddy of all space RTSs. No, it's not the oldest one, but it's actually one of the best. I cannot wait to see what they will do with this one, and if it will be at least as good as previous games, well, I will be happy. Next is S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 Heart of Chernobyl, which is the long-awaited continuation of the S.T.A.L.K.E.R game. And for the ones who never played it, it's basically a Fallout, and Escape from Tarkov had a baby, and this baby was set into a Chernobyl extraction zone. Cannot wait to see what they will do with this game. Next is Plan 8, which is a very Black Desert-like shooter from Pearl Abyss. And from the looks of it, they're trying to, well, make a Black Desert into a shooter, kind of like a Division, but with the Black Desert elements. Hopefully it will be good and it will not be full of microtransactions. And the next is Outer Worlds 2. Practically nothing is known about this game except for the title, and hopefully this game will be at least as good as the first one, and very hopefully much better. And the next one is Kerbal Space Program 2, and long-awaited sequel to amazing Kerbal Space Program, where now instead of focusing only on one star system, you are going interstellar. Can't wait to see what they will do with this game. Next is State of Decay 3, and its sequel to great open world zombie game. Not a lot is actually known about this one, but one thing is for sure, that now we're gonna have a zombie animals in this game, which looks pretty interesting and pretty horrifying as well. Next is Company of Heroes 3, and basically this is a return of amazing World War II strategy game. And if you have never played all the previous games, first things first, go and play them, and then anticipate that this game will be at least as good as those ones. Next is Crimson Desert. Speaking of Pearl Abyss, this is basically a Black Desert, but a little different. This is a third-person action RPG from the creators of Black Desert. And from the looks of it, the combat looks very fun and very interesting. Hopefully everything else in the game will be great as well. Next is Redfall, which is basically Left 4 Dead style game with vampires and from creators of Dishonored. This is actually a very anticipated game by a lot, and hopefully it will not flop like Back 4 Blood did. Next is Frostpunk 2, the sequel to amazing Frostpunk game, but where we see the advancement of tech, where in the first game we were in the steampunk period and we're very dependent on coal. Right now, we are dependent on oil. And hopefully technology has developed as well. And the next is the one that you knew that it would be in this list, Starfield, or how many people call it, No Man's Skyrim. This is the game from the creators of the Elder Scrolls series and the Fallout series, and it takes us to the future where we're gonna have an open world access to the dozens or even hundreds of planets. Hopefully it will be good, but remember, no pre-orders. Next is Cocoon, a beautiful puzzle adventure game from the game designer of Limbo and Inside. It released very atmospheric and beautiful vibes, and hopefully it will be as good as Limbo and Inside was. Next is Ravenlock, an immersive action adventure that takes you to the beautiful low poly world. Not a lot is actually known about this game, and hopefully it will be good. And next is Diablo IV. Well, I was really excited about this one, but after Diablo Immortal, I'm kinda not as much. Hopefully it will be good and will not be a microtransaction mess. And the next is Ara History Untold, which again, not a lot about this game is actually known, but it looks like a turn-based historical strategy, not unlike Civilization games, but without using of the hex grid. Hopefully this game will be good. Next is Street Fighter 6, and well, this game requires again no introduction, a sequel to amazing fighting game, and hopefully again it will be as good as some of the previous games. Next is Fort Solis, a psychological horror game that is happening on Mars. With a very interesting cast of actors tied to this game looks pretty interesting, and hopefully it will be scary, and at least it will be fun. Next is Terra Nil, which is a city building game, and with a style very reminiscent to a Timberborn, but instead of building cities, you're actually building green ecosystems. So basically you are reviving the world around you. Very interesting premise, and hopefully fun to play as well. Next is The Altars. In this game you are stranded on a distant planet and you somehow create your alter egos, basically your what-if counterparts, and you need to, well, basically find a way to escape from this planet. Again, not a lot is actually known about this game, but the premise looks very interesting and very unique. Next is Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon. This is an open-world dark fantasy RPG which is happening around King Arthur era. From trailers, game looks very bleak and very beautiful at the same time, and hopefully it will be as good as RPG as it is graphically beautiful game. Next is Routine, which is the first-person horror in a style of System Shock and Alien Isolation. And if you want just to understand how atmospheric this game is, just take a look at the trailer. Of course, it will be in the description down below. Next is Black Myth Wukong, and a lot of you probably have seen a lot of trailers over the years about this game. This is action Souls-like game in a setting of ancient Chinese mythology, and game has insanely beautiful graphics, very fluid combat, and hopefully this will be as good as trailers show it. And the next is the thing that probably a lot of you are actually waiting for, and it's Ark 2. But this time it's third person only, but with the story and Souls-like combat. And to be fair, when I read about those ones, I actually got a little excited about this game. Well, at least, hopefully this will be better than the first game. Next is The Axis Unseen, an open-world horror hunting game with an insanely beautiful graphics. I have no idea what does horror hunting means, but hopefully it's fun and scary. Next is Aliens Dark Descent, which is a squad-based single-player tactical strategy in a very XCOM style. Basically, you're playing an XCOM, but instead of fighting Advent, you're fighting against Xenomorphs, which I can take every day of the week. The next is Final Fantasy 16, which will be the continuation of Final Fantasy 15, at least gameplay-wise. And it looks very beautiful, and combat looks very fluid and very fast. And, well, real-time as well. Can't wait to see what they will do with this one. And the last but not least is The Lost Wild. This game will be released no earlier than 2025, and this is a beautiful action game with the dinosaur setting. Basically what Ark could have been if it was released a little later. Whew, well, this was the long one, and hopefully at least a few games are very interesting for you. But remember, no pre-orders. You are absolutely free to wishlist the games, but don't pre-order. Please don't do that. I'm not pre-ordering any of those games, and you should not as well. Well, I hope you like this video, and if you do, well, like will be very appreciated, and subscribe will be even more appreciated, even though I'm very thankful for you just being here. Thanks for being here with me. Again, like the video if you liked it, subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. See ya.